frameworks that were built on top, which are Starknet React and, for example, a Starknet Kit. So let's move into the next slide. What is a Starknet React? So Starknet React is a bunch of hooks that are built by the Apibara team. And then these will help you interact on your front-end application with smart contracts or do other operations like wallet operations and more and more. So if you guys are coming from let's say Solidity or Ethereum background, you should be familiar with things like WAGMI. So this is like an equivalent of WAGMI on a Starknet. So as you can see, actually, these name of the hooks are very similar to the ones you can see on WAGMI. Use account, use connect. Now, something to mention on a Starknet React is that they have a very good documentation I'm sharing here. So I would suggest if you guys are interested in knowing deeper on a Starknet React and getting your hands on with that, you can come in and take a look, spend some time to read one by one what these hooks do. There's a lot of hooks here, and the team is always pushing, so we have to always keep up to date with what they are giving us, like the different hooks that we have. So for this time, I'm gonna show you guys how you can set up your project. What is like the basic setup for your project on using a Starknet React, and some of the basic operations, which are the ones that I have here. The wallet operations, the read operations, and the write operations. We're not gonna cover more other hooks, so just for now, we're gonna cover these. So if you go to a Scaffold-Stark organization, we have the one that we just did recently is the BC Chinese Scaffold Starknet React. So in this repo, you will find different branches with different steps for you guys to see how you move from one step to the other. You can check out to these branches and take a look. So let me just start my terminal and do this. Use React. So is this font okay of my code editor?
Yeah.
Okay. So we can move in first to, let me see here, Git lens. I'm gonna go to the very first commit, which is a clean Next.js app. I'm gonna do my npm I. So this is using npm. npm dev. And I'm gonna open my localhost. So this is a clean Next.js project. And then the first thing that we have to do in order to make use of a Starknet React is the configuration. And the configuration is as follows. We will need to declare a component that is a Starknet provider component that is imported from this library, Starknet React. And this is the main dependency that we have. Starknet React core and Starknet React chains. You can take a look here at the package JSON. We've got Starknet React core and chains in the latest versions available. We need to declare this provider, just like you would do in when you're integrating in Ethereum as well with WAGMI. You have to define this configuration here. You will pass different chains that are available, a provider, connectors. You can define your own connectors by using the custom connector class, also provided by Starknet React. You can create your own connectors, and then you have to choose your favorite explorer. So in this case, we're using Voyager. We can also use Starkscan. So here, I haven't installed yet because I moved to install. So I can use Starkscan as well. Also in chains, I can use DevNet as one of my chains. But in this case, we will be mainly working on Sepolia testnet. Okay, so this component is like the basic setup for your application. So if you are building an app on a front-end app on a Starknet, you will have to build this component and then you will have to wrap it here. So basically all your app will be under this component. All your children pages will have this context. This is the basic setup for your application on a Starknet React. Any questions until now?
No, are good.
Okay. All right. Now let's move into the next step. So you guys know that when you have some smart contracts, probably you have already been through those lessons already. You will have a bunch of APIs that are generated. So in order for us to interact with those smart contracts, we need to connect to those, we need to import those APIs on our front end. And these APIs are very important because this allows us to generate the correct data types and call the correct functions on each of these smart contracts. So I'm going to go to this section here where I import the APIs. I just So here in this folder, I have ETH. So ETH itself is a token, but it's also a contract on a Starknet. So it has an address, it has a class hash, and it has an API. So the API it's a bunch of interfaces that has the names of the functions and the parameters and the type of these parameters that it's outputting, also the events, also the inputs. They're all here. It's very helpful for us to use. So we need to have in our front end, if we want to interact with the smart contracts, we must have this type of data, which includes APIs and addresses. Okay, so that is the next step when you want to integrate front ends with the Starknet. Then the next step you want to do is connecting a wallet. So the way you will connect a wallet will be using these three hooks. These are the main hooks. There are other hooks that will have like use account balance, but we're gonna be looking at these three mainly. So the use connect, it's a hook that will connect to the wallet using the connector that you specified on your configuration file. And then likewise for the disconnect. So if we run this, for example, we will be able to see PM dev. So we will be able to see our app again. I see that there's a here a card, and I can just click on connect wallet and I will connect to my wallet. So these type of data are the ones that we get from the use account hook of a Starknet React. Now, this use account hook has different parameters as a result. As you can see, there is a bunch of here. So there's an account, an address, the connector, chain ID, and a bunch of other parameters, as well as the React query parameters that like is loading or failed, all these usual parameters that we use here on React. So in this case, we are fetching the address and is connected using this hook. And then if it's connected, we are displaying the address here. And then if it's not connected, we will be able to connect using the Bravos connector. So it's only going to connect to my Bravos wallet in this case. This is for the example. Okay. So this is the way you connect basically your wallets with your front-end application. Now, let me go to the next one. So for the next one, it's read. So I'm going to show you guys how you can read from contracts on a Starknet. Okay. So we have this before. We have this is our connect section. We connect our wallet operations. And now we have, we want to read from a contract. And there is where we're going to be using what I imported before, which is the APIs and the contract address of the token ETH. Here in the use read contract, you can check out the React documentation, the standard React documentation. Use read contract is going to tell you what type of data do you need, right? So you need ABI, you need a function name, an address, and the arguments if this function receives arguments. Now here I'm doing this, just importing the if contract from this file here, and then I'm using the ABI, I'm using the address, the function name, the argument, and then I'm setting this as enabled only when my wallet is connected. Now this type of data here, I'm using it. It's not really parsed, so it's gonna return an object that with different units. So I need to parse it into something that is more readable. So for example, here, if I run my application, I'm gonna be able to see now the balance of my account. So my wallet is not connected. If I click here, if I connect, now it's loading and I can see that I have 25 ETH on Sepolia. So that is how we read. Now, as I said before, there's other many parameters that you can pass to this hook because it's quite a big one. So for example, you can pass, there's much others, like for example, the block identifier. The block identifier will be very important sometimes because you might want to pass a pending block identifier if you want to see your results as soon as possible. So if you send a transaction, it's going to be pending and you will not be able to read the data if you don't set this to pending. The block identifier has to be pending. Otherwise, it will be default to accepted. So yeah, this is some things to just take care of. There's also like the watch that is gonna refetch every specific amount of seconds. It's gonna keep refreshing your data. I think that's for the read part. Now, let me take a look at the write part. So for the write section, we already have this part. Now for the write section, it requires you two steps. So it requires you to send a transaction, but also you need to parse your calls. So you need to generate those calls here because you have ABIs and you have parameters, but you need to convert those parameters into call data that will be sent to the RPC. So for this case, we use this hook of Starknet React as well, which is use contract, which returns me a contract instance when I pass it an ABI, an address, and also the class hash. So with my contract instance, because it contains an ABI, I am able to generate this call. So this bunch of this populate function, what it's gonna do is that it's gonna receive these parameters, and it's going to generate the call data, which is like if you guys have been exploring Starknet Foundry or SNCast, you see that there's a call data parameter that is passed as an array. So this function is gonna generate that under the hood for the send transfer ETH transaction function. So in this case, what we are doing is we are first calling this hook use send transaction from Starknet React, pass it with empty parameters because the parameters we will pass them only when these values are set. So let's actually run this. So I connect my wallet and I am able to send some ETH to someone else. So I can come in and, for example, change my account first. And I'm gonna transfer 0.1 ETH, 0.01 ETH, and then it prompts me to my wallet. And I'll just sign a transaction, and you can see here there is two transactions happening. So this is something beautiful on the Starknet is that you can, because of account abstraction, you can send multiple transactions or executions into one. So I'm doing an approve and a transfer right in the same transaction here. Now, how this looks in the code is like this function hook to send transactions on Starknet React will receive an array. This array is an array of calls. Now I can put as many calls as I want. There is a limit, of course, but I mean, for a normal use case, basically should be acceptable for most of the use cases that we have. So we just pass a bunch of calls one by one in this array, and then we will be able to execute them all in one transaction. This is very convenient. Now, just I want to stop this with Start and React. I want to move into something else. So we're gonna actually be looking at a bunch of different repos, not only this one, because I'm going to mainly showcase the Scaffold-Stark and how you can use it to build apps. But before that, I wanted to show you how Starknet React works, because Starknet React is the foundation of Scaffold-Stark as well. So is there any questions so far? Okay, very good. Okay, back to the slides. So what is a Scaffold-Stark? So Scaffold-Stark is inspired on a Scaffold ETH. If you guys are familiar with that, probably yes. It's a very useful toolkit for hackathons and doing MVPs for projects and building just fast. So we build this together with the community, and then what I can say about the Scaffold-Stark is basically a wrapper on top of a Starknet React that provides some useful hooks like this one. Use a scaffold read contract, use a scaffold write contract and multi-write, and a bunch of other operations, like for example, event history. So this is not available on the Starknet React, but it is available on the Scaffold-Stark. We are able to fetch a list of events given a bunch of parameters and display them on our UI. Okay. Then another thing that I want to mention on the Scaffold-Stark is that we have a debug page that is very useful for debugging contracts. So depending on what kind of developer you are, so for example, if you are a smart contract developer that only does smart contracts, you might want to just do your tests on Foundry and run them using Cairo. But sometimes we are front-end developers or full stacks, and we don't want to just use one specific tool to do everything. So Scaffold allows you to build contracts and at the same time deploy them and interact with them. And this UI will adapt to whatever contracts you write. So you will have this debug contracts page in which you can interact with them in a more user-friendly way. So you will avoid doing things like this with Starknet cast, calling like call data, passing call data like in this way. You will be able to do it easier by just going into the debugs contract page and interacting with your contracts. I'm not saying that this is better than this Starknet cast, but because a Starknet cast gives you more flexibility, you can do more things. Of course, if you want to like do something very complex, or I don't know, pass a parameter or parse it in a different way that is not supported here as default, then you will need to change this code base, which is very heavy. So it's not ideal. But for normal use cases, if you're building a real application, you will want something readable on your UI and you want to interact with it fast. So that is where a scaffold debugs contract page comes into play. Okay. So I'm gonna move into speedrun first. I'm gonna move into speedrun. So this is a speedrun, and a speedrun is built on top of a Scaffold-Stark. So for me to demo a Scaffold-Stark, I'm gonna be demoing this challenge.